His first mission may be his last. On the barren planet of Tatooine, young Boba Fett is surrounded by criminals, mercenaries, and thieves. In his quest to become a bounty hunter, he is searching out the greatest crime lord of all, Jabba the Hutt. But Jabba the Hutt is not easily found, or easily impressed. When Boba finally tracks down the crime lord, Jabba has an offer for him. One assignment, one chance. He must capture a deadly bounty, or else. It is the biggest test Boba Fett has ever faced, one that will determine his future.
Happy birthday, George Lucas from Padawan Library.
So true, yeah.
Today, the day we were recording, the 14th, is his birthday. This comes out on the 15th, so happy belated birthday.
76, maybe?
I didn't look it up. Somewhere in there, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. I
Yeah,
feel like he was born in the mid-40s somewhere, right?
Yeah, let's find out.
We don't need to look.
Anyway,
I'm
no
Levi
facts
Paretic. On this podcast.
I'm Levi Paretic. Also speaking is Tim May. We are the only Star Wars junior novel podcast.
It's true.
Some Star Wars news this week. One good thing and one thing that I was devastated by for ridiculous reason.
Okay. A few things. First of all, have you seen the second episode of The Mandalorian?
Oh, shit. I forgot to watch that.
Okay, let me just say this about it. There are so many sneak disses at the sequel trilogy in it, I feel like. I'm not one to, read into this stuff all that much, but, I'm just saying, there were some things, Filoni was on a panel with John Knoll, and Filoni is just like, John, you would know this. Which of the movies has the most practical effects shots, including the new ones? And John Knoll's just like, The Phantom Menace. I just thought it was so, including the new ones feels like such a diss. And then Filoni literally gives a lecture at the end of this episode just about Qui-Gon Jinn. That is it's 8 minutes long. It is so good.
I know, because I've been seeing all the clickbait articles are like, Dave Filoni says Duel of the Fates is the most important scene in all of the movies, and I'm like, well, duh, because if Qui-Gon doesn't die, of course.
But he breaks it down so well, and the rest of the directors, it's from the same taping, obviously, are just wrapped with attention. They are just like, yes, master.
That's amazing. Speaking of the sequel trilogy, I realized something. Two things about the sequel trilogy. So I was watching Sopranos, and do you remember the episode where Miles from Lost shows up and he's buddies with Junior in the detention, the psychiatric...
Yeah.
I realized something. He's in Force Awakens... Yeah. And Last Jedi, he's not in Rise.
I'm sure he probably was there, but 50 billion things were cut from that movie. So
they replaced him with Charlie.
Oh well,
of course.
Well, he wasn't. Abrams wasn't involved in Lost by the time Miles showed up. So,
but he was in Force Awakens.
That's
true.
It doesn't. True.
I mean, come on. No.
I don't think there's any grand conspiracy there. Here, I just think it's basically. There were too many pointless characters, and some of them had to get cut out eventually. I'm sure he was on set. I'm sure he's in scenes, deleted scenes.
Well, I'll have to IMDb it. Never diss Miles in my presence.
Miles is one of my favorite characters of all time.
He's the best. He's the greatest.
He was in a pilot that Spike Lee directed for Showtime in like 2004 called Sucker Free City. Pretty good.
Mm-hmm. He's in Saw. He plays Danny Glover's partner.
He is in Saw.
Uh-huh.
Oh, man. How
Speaking
about that book of Saw?
Spiral? It got delayed.
From the book of Saw? I know, of course it got delayed. But yeah,
but it was like coming out in June. All the Saw movies came out in October.
Yeah, it
it
shouldn't have been coming out. It was supposed to come out in May, actually. It shouldn't have been coming out in May anyway, so we'll see if it can make the October date. We'll see. But
let's see.
why are we talking about Saw? Speaking of movies, I have to ask you something.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever heard... I'm sorry, give me a second. Have you ever heard the legend of Curly's Gold?
What? No, I have not heard the legend of Curly's Gold.
Do you know what that is?
It sounds so familiar.
It's City Slickers 2, baby! Oh. For some reason, me and Brooke, just our friend of the show, Brooke, just decided we need to see City Slickers stat. Again, because that's a movie that I really liked when I was a kid, but I remember almost nothing about. Like, seriously nothing. And that was a huge movie. Like, it won an acting Oscar. Jack Palance won an Oscar for City Slickers. And so we looked and we saw you can't rent it anywhere on the internet. You can only buy it for $13. I was like,
holy crap.
No way. And thankfully, Brooke, who works at a used video store, he went back to work in the last week. So we called up. He was off that day. We called up his place of work and asked, do they have City Slickers? And they did, and it was $5. City Slickers, baby.
Damn.
And so we're going to enjoy some Billy Crystal later this weekend.
Oh,
Very
that'll
exciting.
be fun. Speaking of that, you needed a copy of Welcome to Marwen. Was he able to get that for you as well?
He was not able to get it, because I wasn't willing to spend over $10, because the movie's still fairly recent. So if any of our listeners have a copy of Welcome to Marwen, they can send it directly to me. I will give you my address. Message us. I don't need Welcome to Marwen that badly. I won't need it for like 9 months or something. So yeah.
Oh boy.
Oh,
so
and by the way, if you're wondering why I want to even ever see Welcome to Marwen, it's just a podcast I listen to. They're covering Robert Zemeckis later this year, and I have literally all of his other movies except that one. I went and bought all of them. Because I was bored, and I was like, I won't have to watch these for 6 months, and some of them I'm happy to have, of course, and then there's others, Disney's A Christmas Carol seems a little dubious for me to own, especially...
I can't remember if I've actually seen that
the one with Jim?
Yeah, I don't think I have.
Yeah. By the way, apparently Adam Sandler was a big fan of the Sonic the Hedgehog movie.
Good.
Yeah, he apparently called Jim Carrey personally to congratulate him on it. This is a story that was apparently reported. I don't know why.
Well, Jim needs to keep making movies like that, in my opinion.
They should. They need to make a movie together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and now Sandman's riding high off Uncut Gems, so I feel like it's time.
Both of them. I mean, Jim, in his later career was going for those dark roles like that. He wanted those serious roles.
Jim
so maybe the two.
The problem with Jim is he's not been in a good movie in a very long time.
No, very,
it's
very
weird.
long time.
Like it might. I don't know. It might be all the way back to like Eternal Sunshine. Might be the last good movie. I mean, there's. I'm probably forgetting something, but like that feels like the last.
Well, he had that streak there with like Man on the Moon, The Majestic, Truman
Majestic
Show.
is not good, I would say.
Some people like that movie.
Yeah,
I'm not saying I do, but it's an okay movie.
Yeah,
but like then
his early comedies are good, but I think the last comedy of like straight up comedy of his that I think totally works is Me, Myself, and Irene, and since then. There's like Bruce Almighty, which has funny bits, but isn't a very good movie. And Steve Carell's the main attraction in that movie. And I don't know. It's hard to. Why are we talking about Jim Carrey? I don't know.
How did we? Okay,
we were talking about City Slickers for some reason. I said I need to bring this up on the podcast.
Then we got on Sandman.
Here's the thing: Legend of Curly's Gold. Okay, is the sequel title City Slickers 2: Legend of Curly's Gold? And I was talking to our friend Zach, who will probably never be on this show, but he's a friend of both of ours. Mm-hmm. We were talking, and we were saying like. We remember seeing that one way more on TV, and this was a big thing back in the day where, like, the sequel would be on TV so much more than the original. And, the City Slickers 2 was one of those. It's like Father of the Bride 2 was another one. Like, you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
I exactly know what you mean, because Ace Ventura 2, When Nature Calls, is always on TV more than Ace Ventura 1.
That's another one. Yeah, all of that. Like, it's so strange. But not, like, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey was never on TV, though, which is interesting, which is the second Bill and Ted movie. Interesting stuff, I'm just saying. Anyway.
But that one was given out free with Pizza Hut. Do you remember that promotion?
Oh, yeah, the DVD? Yes, of course I remember. I got it. That's how I got Bogus Journey. I remember I bought Excellent Adventure at Blockbuster for full price on DVD. Mm-hmm. I think I probably paid like $20, and then but then I got a Pizza Hut thing and I got Bogus Journey for free. It was incredible, and it's full case and everything. Very impressive. Anyway,
okay. How can we turn this around? Oh, have you watched Clone Wars at all?
No.
Okay, all right.
Me and my brother just kind of hung out and we took a walk and enjoyed each other's company, but we'll get to it.
Well, that's good.
It's going to happen. I have to say,
I have finished it, and it's great.
I know.
That's what I'll say.
I'm aware that it is great, and I promise within the next few weeks you guys will hear my thoughts. You need to go back and watch some key episodes, in my opinion.
I do, because I had no clue who Bo-Katan was, who has just been cast in The Mandalorian.
Yeah, she's the same as the voice actress. It's Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica. So cool.
Right. And of course the big casting news from Mandalorian is of course Tamura Morrison.
Tamura is back.
Yeah, I can't wait. That's going to be
so he's
exciting.
Definitely Boba Fett. Do you think he'll also be Rex, maybe?
I think so. Because, like, here's the crazy rumors. So the rumor is that there's going to be Bo-Katan, Ahsoka, Captain Rex, and Sabine from Rebels.
That would make sense if you've seen the end of Rebels. That makes sense.
Right. But Sabine, the rumor casting going around for Sabine is WWE superstar. What's her name? Oh crap, Sasha Banks.
I saw that she was going to be in. She was cast officially in the show, but I didn't know.
Oh, she was? I didn't know.
She was cast a couple months, or it was announced a couple months ago.
Okay, because the only connection is they both have purple hair. So
I hope that's not her. Because first of all, Sabine... I mean, Sasha Banks, she's white, right?
No.
No? Okay. Never mind. I apologize. I don't know anything about wrestling, people.
Right. So that's fine. That's fine.
Okay. So what was she, like, Latina, or...
I think she's African American. So
okay, there's no actual race going on with an animated Star Wars character, but the voice actress was, I believe, Latina, and I felt like the character read that way, at least through an Earth lens, which is the only way we can watch the show, man. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm going to move away from this subject, but
if you get any deeper in this subject, we'll be talking about the Nemoidians and the Gungans and.
Oh, listen, well, there's a lot of Nemoidian talk this week.
There is a lot of Nemoidian talk.
Oh boy.
And speaking of one more thing about bounty hunters. I was devastated this week. The same day we learned about the Tamura news, we also learned about the proposed fate of bounty hunter Dengar.
Oh, yes.
Which I do not like.
You got so mad about this. I felt I felt this was pretty funny. You got really angry, and I just didn't respond. Basically,
I will tell you this: it ruined my day. Like, it put me in a funk all day.
For the listeners, if you don't know, there's an image from. I assume it's a visual dictionary for
Yes.
Rise of Skywalker. There's a character who looks nothing like Dengar,
named Rothgar Dang is his name.
Yes,
and I'll let me see if I still have the photo saved. So he vaguely looks like Dengar in the fact that like his armor is vaguely similar, but otherwise this thing is a walking nightmare. Rothgar is an old, experienced Corellian bounty hunter who is likely operating under an alias. Rothgar Dengar. He has been subjecting himself to cybernetic replacements in a poorly planned bid to live and work forever. As age began slowing his reflexes and dulling his senses, Rothgar turned to the black market surgical clinics to replace damaged or wizened body parts with ones that gave him an advantage into his dangerous trade. Poor decision-making has led him to a ghastly appearance. Yes, this is terrible. I hate this character, so that's all I have to say.
And I'm not a huge fan of the design. And the design I would have maybe been okay with if it weren't Dengar. Like, it's like kind of a fun...
Yes.
But like... whatever. Anyway.
And the fact that it's like an exposed head, his head's not in bandages, and like the picture is clearly just like a guy standing there with like a prosthetic like top from waist up. Like, it's I don't love the creature workshop of the prequel series. That's all I'm going to say.
The sequels. So. I think I like
the
a
sequels,
lot of it.
Yes.
I really like the Last Jedi creatures, a lot of them.
They're better. They're better in my opinion.
But, and, you know, some of the creatures in Force Awakens, I just don't remember any creatures from Rise of Skywalker is the other thing. Like, but I don't remember much about that movie, detail-wise.
But you can watch it any time on Disney+.
I want to ask you one more question.
Okay.
What do you think Rolling Stone said about the film City Slickers?
I'm gonna say that they liked it and they gave it 4 stars.
Well, I don't have the rating in front of me.
Okay.
I just have the quote that's on the DVD. They called it the rowdiest Western joke fest since Blazing Saddles. What a rowdy Western joke fest. That's all. Speaking of Daniel Stern, who's also in City Slickers, of course. Me and Brooke watched Celtic Pride the other day.
I'm unfamiliar with that one.
That's Daniel Stern and Dan Aykroyd are 2 crazy Celtics fans in Boston that kidnap the star player of the Utah Jazz who are playing the Celtics in the finals. The star player played by Damon Wayans. I gotta say, I basically can enjoy any basketball movie, and I enjoyed it on that level. But pretty poor. But I will say, Aykroyd, pretty funny in it. You forget sometimes that Aykroyd was funny.
He was a funny guy. Yeah.
Not that he's like he just doesn't do anything anymore. He's retired basically. So like, not officially speaking, not like performatively like Rick Moranis. You know, it's not like he's just like, I'm retired and I won't do anything.
Well, you know Rick's coming out of retirement, right?
I'm well aware. I can't wait, and it's directed by Joe Johnston. R.I.P. People don't even know what we're talking about. Rick Moranis is starring in a new Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movie.
Right. It's starring Josh Gad.
With Josh Gad as his son. But it is directed once again by Joe Johnston, who directed the first Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And I was about to say R.I.P. to Stuart Gordon, the writer of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and the director of Reanimator, Castle Freak, etc. A true genre movie legend. He died like a month or 2 ago.
Yeah, very recently.
Props to Stuart.
I see Josh Gad also just got cast in the new Roland Emmerich movie, too. I don't know why.
I didn't even know he's making a movie. What movie is it? Well, he just did that. Midway was surprisingly a hit. Yeah,
it was a hit. I don't know what it's about, but I know like the what's being said is Josh Gad has to save the world is what I've heard about this film. So that's all I know about it.
whatever. I don't know. I'm not as anti-Gad as some people that we know, including you, but only because I feel like I think he's legitimately funny in the Frozen movies, and I feel like a total turd for saying that, but I just think he is. And like Book of Mormon, you can't really like fuck with that. But outside of those things, he is a very annoying. He's an annoying celebrity for sure.
Yes.
Like
watch
I don't
him
mind
in any
him,
promotional Disney thing.
I don't mind him in some movies. Like he's fine in some, like as a performer, but as a celebrity, I find him very irritating.
Very extreme. He's apparently been hosting like a web series
where he's
been doing reuniting
casts.
But he's there. You're not part of the cast. What are you doing here?
Guess
Get
what?
Out.
I don't want to. I want to hear Michael J. Fox and Robert Zemeckis talk about Back to the Future, not you. Mm-hmm. I don't care what you thought of Back to the Future. I'm sure it's the same as everybody else on Earth. So I saw that Zemeckis came out and said again that they won't be making a fourth movie. So I'm happy for that. Good for Zemeckis.
Not as long as he's alive. As soon as he
it will get remade, but I don't think you're ever going to get an actual fourth. The other thing is, there's two things that will prevent the Back to the Future 4 from making any sense. One, there's nowhere for the story to go, like nowhere, and two, Christopher Lloyd is like 1,000 years old, and Michael J. Fox clearly can't like star in movies. Like the only acting he's done the last several years has been like little cameos that he probably was on set for a couple hours. Like I did. Like he clearly just, whether it's like he can't or he just chooses not to, he's not
right. Yeah, it's fine with me. And not to backtrack to the Sandman and phone calls, but I heard somewhere that Dan Aykroyd called the Sandman to congratulate him on Uncut Gems. Dan Aykroyd apparently so impressed he had to call Adam Sandler up to tell him how much he liked the movie.
That rules. Oh man. Well, Aykroyd has been in some real movies, here it happens sometimes.
Yep.
House of Mirth. You big mirth head?
No, I've never seen that.
You big mirth head? Terrence Davies' House of Mirth? I've never seen it either. I just wanted to say mirth head, so yeah. Anyway.
And just to tie this into Star Wars, I know in her last memoir, Carrie Fisher claimed that Dan Aykroyd was still in love with her.
I know, very famously. I think he's admitted this. I think he said that in an interview. So weird. Whatever. They were Coke buddies, I'm sure. Anyway,
and she was in Blues Brothers, so
that's true. Yeah, of course, she's awesome in Blues Brothers. God, Blues Brothers is a great movie. Thank God no one died on that one.
That movie rules so hard. My mother-in-law had that movie on when we were visiting for Pennsylvania, and I just went to the room like, I'm not going to watch this movie. I watched it recently. I watched all of Blues Brothers.
It's
that
incredible.
Movie is a masterpiece.
You and some other friends of ours have been doing these bracket tournaments of movies, and there was an 80s comedy bracket, and you showed me the full bracket because I thought it might be something to fill time on the show, but I got so mad at some of the first round exits that I was like, we can't even talk about this on the show. And one of them was, I can't remember what it lost to, but Blues Brothers was out in round one. Ugh. Like, what are we talking about?
Oh, I know, I definitely didn't vote that way.
Of course you didn't. I knew you didn't. Don't get me wrong. That's insane. All right, this week on Padawan Library.
Oh yeah, we didn't even announce what we're even reading.
We're doing Boba Fett number 4, Hunted by Elizabeth Hand. So we'll discuss that after our break here, and 22 minutes is fine.
That's a good opening, yeah.
And I hope we can crack an hour. I think we can crack an hour on this.
I think we could crack an hour. I think we can. There's no subtext to these books. There's no underlying themes. There's no
we
morals.
Just have to recap,
they are just straight stories.
All right. So, all right. We'll talk when we get back. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Padawan Library. I'm Tim May, Here, as always, with Levi Paratic.
Hello.
Hey. This week, back to Boba Fett. What all our listeners have been clamoring for. They're like, enough of that Jude. Get that Jude out of here. We want more Elizabeth Hand. So, we're here to answer the calls of our listeners and read Boba Fett number 4, Hunted.
And this book, again, I'll say is I still have no information to design. So these covers, they've been 2 people credited on these. So Louise Bova has gotten the design by credit and illustration by Peter Bollinger. And I think illustration, he is doing these very wacky looking CGI renderings of characters. So on the cover of this book, I'm pretty sure he did Dirge. And on the previous book, he did the very, very goofy looking Sand Hill that was CGI, which is like you had photos of him. And the Japanese cover used a photo of Sand Hill, like an actual photo that they had, but instead the Scholastic America was just like, no, we need a bad CGI rendering of this character on this book. So yeah, like, if you couldn't tell from my tone earlier, we have not been that enthused by these books thus far. And I said before we started recording that I do think this is a slight uptick in quality. Mm-hmm. I felt like, at least from the last couple. Listen, this is my problem. This book is, I think, a fine Star Wars adventure about a character who is not Boba Fett. I don't need Boba Fett. I don't need Boba Fett to be like totally ruthless and not without any, redeeming qualities. But Boba Fett's not like a good kid. He's not like Goku from Dragon Ball, or Gohan. Actually, my Dragon Ball heads will know what I'm talking about. That filler episode during the training part of the Saiyan saga when he fucking meets all the orphan kids. This book's a lot like that. So yeah, he's got to free some slaves. So and it's, listen, I'm not saying Boba Fett I get that he's a child and he hasn't been hardened by the bounty hunting life yet, but I just don't need it. I don't need the Get 'em Dad version of Boba Fett. We've talked about this already, but I need to reiterate. I just don't want it. Get it out of Boba Fett. I can't wait for Boba Fett to return in Mandalorian and be the one true. Mm-hmm. Especially, and Tamura has, like, I was just thinking today, he's in episode 3, he plays Commander Cody, but, like, I don't think of him as Commander Cody, I think of him as Jango Fett, so, like, that's what I'm excited for. I'm
excited. So, anyway, this book, if you remember...
Good man, that Cody. That's something that Obi's always saying.
If you remember, the last book ended with some nonsense. He was on a banking planet, right?
Right, and he escapes Aurra Sing. So now he's got to go.
The next thing in his book from his father is to meet Jabba du Hutt.
Right? And get knowledge from him, and he has to take the knowledge, which that doesn't make a whole lot of sense in the context of this book, but okay.
So, yeah, basically, he goes to Tatooine, he lands in Mos Espa. He very quickly meets a girl who takes his helmet. And what's the girl's name again?
Her name is Yagaba.
I would say Egaba. It's Y-Gaba. So okay. I think maybe it's like Egaba. I don't know. Anyway, meets her. She takes his helmet. He runs after her, and she's just like, oh, like, these Mandalorian helmets are worth a lot. Where'd you get it? Where'd you steal it? He's like, I didn't steal it. I didn't steal it. I didn't steal it. Then she's with a bunch of other kids. All these other kids look very malnourished. He's like, what the fuck's going on with these kids? And then eventually they figure out, okay, so these kids, they keep talking about a master. And they're like, oh, what's going on here? This is some upsetting stuff. And so, eventually, Igaba, who's a little older than the other kids and is like closer to Boba's age, basically, and she kind of explains what's going on to him, but she's about to explain, but then their master shows up. And who's their master? It is, what's his name again?
He's a Nemoidian named Libcath.
Libcath, and we'll find out more about Libcath soon. So, Libcath, he shows up, hologram, just a hologram, but he does some, creepy, like, who's your master? And they're like, you are, and all this stuff. Very upsetting. And
they all have these, like, eye things
they got
palm
a
of their
third
hand.
eye. They got a third eye.
Yeah,
Very weird.
And apparently Libcath, like, he puts it in all the children, and if they try to escape the planet, it releases a deadly neurotoxin and kills them. So this guy is bad news.
Rough stuff. But anyway, Boba's able to convince Igaba to return his helmet and his book too. By the way, they also tried to take his
she
book.
took that.
And go ahead.
Yeah, so at the very beginning of the book, Boba wanders into a cantina, and this is the first time we're ever discussing this character, and probably the only time we will discuss this character.
Forgot about
but
this.
he has a run-in with infamous Clone Wars character Dirge.
Yes.
If you don't know who Dirge is, Dirge was introduced during the Clone Wars multimedia project immediately following Episode 2.
Of course,
he shows up and is killed by Obi-Wan almost immediately in the original Clone Wars cartoon.
Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars. You hear that Popeye movie he was going to make is back on?
Yeah, I did hear about that.
That's pretty cool.
And you know what? We love TCM in my house. TCM, we adore it. TCM app always has Popeye shorts on it, and we love Popeye. We watch Popeye all the time. We watched Popeye last night, actually.
Popeye is the GOAT. Like, one of the funniest things that's ever happened. The animation is just incredible. Like, of course, we're talking about 30s and maybe a little early 40s Popeye.
Right.
None of that nonsense from the 50s and 60s. Get that out of here. But
yes, the Fleischer Popeye.
Fleischer Popeyes are delightful. I remember when because we were film students, we had to take animation classes, and I remember our animation professor just sat everybody down to watch Popeye cartoons, and we were laughing hysterically, and all the animation students were just stone-faced. It was so frustrating.
And a specific memory from that animation class is that Popeye and Olive Oyl opened up a restaurant, and they had this song where they kept going, "We aim to please." I still sing that all the time.
Anyway, so yeah,
Genndy
Tartakovsky was gonna make a Popeye movie a few years ago. It got canceled.
Right, there's a short that he did.
Yeah, there's
available
a test
on YouTube
or whatever. You can find it, and then, but I guess it's back on. I haven't actually looked into the details of that, but I'm happy it's back on. Glad he's gonna get to make a non-Hotel Transylvania movie.
That's great.
Which, by the way, Hotel Transylvania. Pretty good. Pretty good. Anyway. I'm not lying. Anyway, so... what are we talking about?
Oh, Dirge.
Dirge.
So Dirge is a... okay, I'll give a quick... This is a quick description of Dirge if you have no idea who Dirge is. This is on page 18. His father had warned Boba about him, a 2,000-year-old bounty hunter. Dirge hated the Mandalorians more than anything else in the galaxy. 100 years before Boba was born, Dirge had attempted to capture the Mandalorians' leader. Instead, he himself was captured and tormented. But Dirge escaped, and he went into hibernation to recover from his wounds. When he emerged fully healed, he vowed revenge upon all the Mandalorians. But yet, it was too late for revenge. By then, there were few Mandalorians left in the galaxy. They had been exterminated in the course of countless battles with the Jedi. Still, part of Jango Fett remained alive in the clone army generated by his DNA, and Dirge had vowed to eliminate all of Jango's clones, and to do Count Dooku's bidding. So, Dooku has basically hired Boba Dirge to find Boba Fett. So that's why Dirge is on Tatooine. He's looking for little baby boy Boba. And also, funny thing else about Dirge is Dirge hates the Mandalorians, but yet has the Mandalorian skull painted on his chest in some way of like taunting, but it's just really dumb.
Well, we know what he really wants to do with the Mandalorians. He wants to fuck them.
Dirge sucks. So
yeah, I don't know what that was. I'm sorry, everybody.
It's okay. I think Dirge is really lame. I thought and his when he first came out, I mean, we only knew him from an action figure at the very beginning,
right.
And he's like this armored up dude. He's got like a frickin' flail and a jetpack and guns, and he's just way too bulked out. And then, Obi-Wan showed him who's boss.
Yeah.
So
get out of here, Dirge. So basically, after Boba Fett gets his helmet back from Igaba, he heads out looking for Jabba.
Correct.
And he winds up going to a pod race at the arena from Episode 1. Am I getting the events right here? Because then that's how he meets Jabba. But he meets someone before he meets Jabba. I feel like that person didn't come back. Was it just that cook?
No, the cook's important. The cook's later.
Yeah, the cook comes a little later. Yeah.
Well, because he goes to the pod race arena with Igaba, because she and the orphans have to steal a shipment of weapons that are in that area.
Oh, right, for the Nemoidian guy.
Yeah, Libcath.
By the way, remember, did we mention that Libcath is a Nemoidian?
We may have not have.
He is.
He's a Nemoidian. And
he has a very big hat. He has a very big hat.
Yeah.
He looks kind of like Lot Dodd on the cover.
Yeah, that's who I thought he was too on the cover too. I mean, they made no difference. They just took a character and they just named it that. Oh. So yeah, he meets Jabba. Jabba's hanging out in a big tent outside the arena. He didn't feel like going in, and and Boba has to basically talk his way into Jabba's favor, and Jabba does this test. He says, well, if you're so smart, boy, tell me who's going to win this pod race, And Boba's looking at the screen. The pod race hasn't started yet. He's looking at all the names. Gascano's there. Quick Gascano shout. Best pod racer. Best pod racer other than Anakin Skywalker.
Gascano is still racing. At this point, he's he's the Vince Carter of pod racing. There you go, NBA reference for our one listener that cares.
I'll do you one better. He's the Mario Andretti of pod racing.
Very nice. All right, so
and then Boba.
He's the Yammer Yager. You want to talk about some? You know who that is?
I have no clue who that is.
He's a hockey player who he won the first Penguins Stanley Cup in 1991, and he was still playing a year and a half ago or something. Insane, this absolutely crazy. Anyway,
legend.
Yeah.
So anyway, Boba, he's like, "What do I do? What do I do?" And then he's like, "Oh, I'll turn to him and say, I know who the winner is, Almighty Jabba. Whoever you want to win." And Jabba's like,
Jabba
I like
that
this kid.
He likes that answer. Jabba, by the way, I'm glad that this book chose to just write out his dialogue in Basic, or English as we might know it.
Not Huttese.
Yeah, I hate when any sci-fi book, this is not just Star Wars books, any sci-fi book writes out full language, I don't care. Just either say, they said something in their language if you don't want us to know what they're saying, or translate it, you dips.
Yep, and Boba knows Huttese. We know that from Attack of the Clones, because that's what Jango speaks to him in whenever he tells Boba to go shut the door or whatever when Obi-Wan's at the apartment.
One other thing about Jabba, I think it's in this scene, he says, you're my kind of scum, don't like that.
Okay.
This is my thing. I don't like when Star Wars books will like repeat something that's like a famous line from the movies as though it's like a catchphrase for like, because then it just makes that line less special. It's like, oh, Jabba just says that all the time. It's like, not a fan of that personally.
Yep. Yeah, and otherwise all Jabba does in this book is just eat worms. He eats a lot of worms in this book.
So he comes with Jabba on the sail barge, and while on the sail barge, to go back to the palace from the pod race, and so while on the sail barge, he meets a cook.
Yes, Gabora.
Gabora. And they become fast friends. Gabora's an older gentleman, and
a pastry chef.
Yes. And so...
that's important to the end of this book, the fact that he's a pastry chef.
yes, it's very important. So Gabora kind of like becomes his consigliere on the barge, and he shows him around, protects him from some of the more unsavory characters, and and he tells him a little bit about what's his face, the other bounty hunter from the other.
Oh, Dirge.
Dirge, sorry. Tell him a bit. Watch out for Dirge. He really hates Jango Fett. Don't tell him that you're Jango Fett's son. And part of why he hates Jango Fett, by the way, is revealed here, and I think this is revealed elsewhere, is that he really wanted to be the basis for the clone army. And so he thinks Jango stole that incredible opportunity from him to assist in building a slave army. Oh, damn it! I wanted to be the slave army. I did.
And I want to note here that 20 pages are spent on Jabba's sail barge. From the time Boba gets on the sail barge to the time Boba departs the sail barge is exactly 20 pages.
Sure.
Not a whole lot happens in that 20 pages.
That's basically it. So, yeah. They get to the palace. Boba Fett meets with Jabba, and Dirge is also there, and because Boba Fett's going to send them both on a job. They're both bounty hunters who are on retainer for Jabba, and basically Jabba's kind of pitting them against each other because he's a slime ball, a literal one, and so.
I want to note too that the book notes that Jabba is far more foul than his cousin Gorga.
Oh,
remember we read Gorga in the last book?
I remember when we talked about Gorga, they described him as so crazy. I was like, is that just because these books haven't introduced us to Jabba yet, or is he crazier than Jabba, more fat?
Mm-hmm.
But apparently no. It was just it was the former. So anyway, basically Boba, I should say, kind of pulls some fast ones on everybody and mind games, and Dirge gets confused, and eventually they wind up fighting. In front of Jabba.
Boba smacks him in the face with a roasting squid tentacle, so that's kind of silly.
Yeah.
And then Jabba, he's like, Dirge, you need more training. And then he gets his Gamorrean guards to throw Dirge in a pit with these giant spiders that he has to fight off.
Yeah.
So, and then in the meantime, Jabba gives Boba.
Yep. Lord of the Rings. I know you don't care about Lord of the Rings.
No, I didn't catch that. Speaking of Lord of the Rings, I watched Willow the other day.
I saw you watched it, and you gave it pretty positive rating.
I liked Willow. Was very good. I
haven't
enjoyed
seen
Willow
it in
a lot.
many years. I need to watch it again.
It's an extremely violent movie. I was surprised by how much blood and violence there was at the end of it.
The main memory I have of it is Warwick Davis screaming "Mad Mardigan" at Val Kilmer over and over again.
He does. He does scream that a lot.
That's his name, right? That's Val's name.
Mad Mardigan.
Yeah, so I gotta watch it again. And I remember when I watched it, I was like, "Wow, this story is almost exactly the same as the original Star Wars." But maybe I was wrong there. I don't know, or maybe it's just a hero's journey thing. But I remember it felt very structurally identical.
See, I felt like it was George, Ron was just like, "Hey George, I want to make Lord of the Rings," and George was like, "I got a better story for you. Hold on."
Oh, so like how Indiana Jones is the better version of James Bond or whatever. Yeah, that's a classic story. Yeah, no, I remember liking it. There's 2 novels for Willow. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't.
That were written by Chris Claremont and George Lucas, but clearly just Lucas gave him some notes for the world, and Claremont went all in. You know who Chris Claremont is, I assume?
The name is vaguely familiar.
He's the main X-Men person in history.
Oh, okay.
He relaunched X-Men essentially in the 70s, and the X-Men we know and think of is his X-Men. He wrote it for like 15 years. Anyway, so he wrote these 2 novels. I think it's like Shadows, Moon, or something. I have them somewhere. I never read them. But that might be a fun bonus episode to do.
That would be a fun bonus episode.
We'll think about it. I'm not promising anything.
Well, there's also those Choose Your Own Adventure Indiana Jones adventure books that are written by R.L. Stine, so those would actually be fun for the show too. So,
ooh, yeah, that would be fun. We'll figure it out. Maybe if we're bored with Star Wars one week on an off week, we can just do a bonus.
We'll start digging into the world of Lucasfilm. Yeah. I mean, we'll get the Howard the Duck novelization out of the way.
The Radioland Murders tie-in books and the
the body heat novelization. Okay. So going back to the book, Jabba gives Boba his first job. He has to go hunt down Gillamos Labcath. So Labcath has a first name.
Yes.
And Jabba tells him to take him down and take down all of his followers. So
that would mean he had to take down all of the children.
The kids. Right.
So basically at this point you have him and Boba and God damn it, I keep forgetting his name.
Gabora?
No, the other bounty hunter.
Dirge. Legend Dirge.
Anyway,
he is not canon.
They are
canon.
Yeah,
anymore.
I know. They are competing to get this bounty, and so Dirge is chasing after Boba, and Boba stops to check in on Gabora. Not check in on he wants Gabora to help him get out of the palace, and Gabora gives them a jetpack. Is it Boba's famous jetpack? It seems like it might be.
It might be. We don't know.
So anyway, he jumps right off the roof, basically, the palace, and he flies away, barely escaping the grasp of Dirge. And so he makes his way back to Mos Espa, and then pretty easily finds the Nemoidian motherfucker,
yep.
and and he throws something at him, and that really
throws a brick at his head.
Throws a brick at him, and dude is just completely knocked out. Doesn't know not literally knocked out, but just like what is happening. All the kids scatter. Boba takes his hat, which is apparently the biggest insult to Nemoidians, is that he took his hat and he's just like, my hat! I don't want to do a Nemoidian voice, but my hat! And so it was very funny. And
then Dirge comes in to kill Boba and Labcath and ends up blowing the place up, and Boba escapes with Yagaba and all the kids. And then they're just like, are we sure Labcath is dead? And then their third eye just magically disappears. And it's like, oh, we're free.
And so Igaba, she sends all the other kids to some woman that's trustworthy who will help them get back to their families. And so she goes with Boba back to Jabba's palace for Boba to collect the bounty. Boba goes in. Jabba's like, I love this kid's incredible. He presents him with the hat, and somebody's like, how do we know that means he's dead? And then Jabba's just like, no Nemoidian would ever be without their hat. Like, yeah. So, Jabba's like, I'm going to have more jobs for you. Stick around. And so then, but then the book's not quite over yet because if Baba spots someone, she's like, "Father!" And then who is her father? Who is it?
Gabora. Which I suspected this being that Gab is in both of their names.
Yeah. It's like the only two people on Tatooine that were nice to young Boba happen to be related.
And this is the best part of this all. So after he's reunited with his daughter, he reaches a hand towards Boba and he says, "Young man, I owe you my heart," he said, "and my daughter's life. Thank you." Boba shrugged and then smiled. "You're welcome." Gabora waved closer. "Come here," he said. He pointed at a cake as tall as Boba, topped with scurry mint frosting and Valian pods. At its peak, a Zibon truffle that shone like a gem. Boba set his helmet on the floor and just dove into that cake. So, and then Jabba says to him, "Don't get distracted, young man. Tomorrow you begin your new life." And Jabba's being like real fatherly and jovial with Boba.
Yeah, good old Jabba.
Good guy.
Slave owner Jabba. And so, you know, like, what a great guy. And so, yeah, he, I love that every single male protagonist of these books, like young male protagonist, is like so hungry, such a growing boy, you know?
I just love that this book literally ends with Boba getting a giant cake. Like, that to me is crazy.
So weird. This book, listen, I'll say this. I thought this book, like I said at the beginning, I think this book is a lot better than at least the last one or two Boba Fett books. And, like, I had a fun time with it, more so. Like, I liked some of the characters. Like, I liked Gabora and Igaba. Felt kind of like, you know, low-rent Jedi Apprentice style characters. I enjoyed it more. It felt like there was more of a plot. Not much going on. Like, certainly nothing, like, interesting to talk about. But there was at least more going on. It wasn't just action scene after action scene. There was a little more character stuff going on. So, I'm going to say Elizabeth Hand stepped it up a little bit here. I'm going to go with a 5 out of 10 midichlorians. And I'm going to flavor it with Lot Dodd, because that's who I thought it was.
Yeah, that's who I thought it was too. And I will also go 5 stars, and I will flavor it with scurry mint frosting.
An actual flavoring. Yes. Yes.
So, yeah, these books, I mean, it's very apparent that there's, like, no, like, these books are written as just entertainment for 10-year-olds.
Which
like,
is fine.
Not, like, you're right, that's what Star Wars is entertainment for 10-year-olds, but, like, it's just, like, there's no morality, like, there's no moral epicenter to these stories at all. They're straight stories.
The thing is, there's opportunities that present themselves. Like, there's an entire army of slave children in this book, and there's, like, things they could, you know, expand upon, but it just feels like this was just a very kind of surface level adventure, and that's fine. But what's next week? We have another Boba Fett book. What's that one called?
This book is actually I'm very excited about this book. This is a new threat, and this book debuted General Grievous. So if you look on the FaceTime right now, they put General Grievous on the cover, and this is actually like a concept art General Grievous. This is not exactly how Grievous looks in the final thing. So, and also canon, Wat Tambor is also on this cover too. Ooh. So, and in terms of,
there's at least going to be some fun stuff to talk about, since that's the first time you saw. So that's his first appearance?
Yeah, this is Grievous's first appearance.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember this got a headline, like this made news headlines when this book cover debuted because this was the first physical, like, actual thing we got to see of Grievous. So that's very exciting. And what's also exciting is Wat Tambor, one of, I would say, not my favorite, but one of my favorite separatists. And maybe at some point we should do some sort of draft or a tournament with the separatists.
Yeah, that's a smart idea. Maybe we'll do it for the last Boba Fett book. Maybe,
right. We're obviously going to fight over one specific character.
Yes, it'll be hard for us to decide. That'll be well fought. We'll see. So yeah, next week we got Boba Fett, and then we wrap up Boba Fett the following week. And then we got Secrets of the Jedi. And after that's a little up in the air.
I had an idea about that. Yeah. We should do Jedi Prince number 4.
I was thinking that. I was actually going to suggest that. So yeah. So we could even lock that in probably. Jedi Prince 4 will probably be after. So that we have it up through that, and then maybe we'll be starting another series after that, but we'll have to figure that out as we go. I don't want to commit to that yet.
Right, so, yeah. Because obviously we could go into Last of the Jedi, which I keep wanting to put off because I keep thinking it's the last thing Jude wrote, but this whole thing with Rebel Force now is so we have that and then Rebel Force, so we still have plenty of Jude left.
Yeah, we should maybe try to cram a Galaxy of Fear in here too before.
I agree. So or a couple.
We'll figure it out. It'll all get worked out, everybody. But anyway, check us out we haven't talked about social media in a few weeks. Check us out.
No, we haven't.
On Instagram, on Twitter, I guess, on Facebook, at Padawan Library. You might be able to see some sweet City Slickers images this week. Is that what you're doing out in South Dakota, looking for Curly's gold?
That's exactly what I'm doing. I was actually, there's actually places you can gold pan out here, as a tourist attraction. And there's a little creek that runs right behind my trailer. The other day I was looking in it and I wonder if I can find any gold in here.
That might be Curly's gold. I'd be careful about that. Anyway, so check us out there and join us next week. But
yep, until the books are due back.
The library is closed.
And yes, under an hour.
Yo! Padawan Library is hosted and produced by Tim May and Levi Peretic. It is edited by Tim May. Our theme song is by The Astral Project. Our artwork is by Freddie Funbuns. Copyright 2020, Tim May and Levi Peretic, all rights reserved.